the unreliable transportation system. You know, I had a car, but it was more of a headache or a hindrance in that city. And like I said, moving here, it was kind of liberating actually not to have a car. I mean, in New York, you just, you know, got around. I don't have family here I don't have any family here in the United States, or a few distant relatives that I'm not sure I've met or talked to in decades that I've been here. So essentially, effectively, I have no family here. I'm surprised that I've adjusted, you know. It's always incredulous to people. You know, when they ask the question, do you have any family here? And I say no, and they say it must be so lonely. Not really. I think I managed to keep myself busy, and all the cities that I've lived in, I've, you know, made new friends. I think this relocation to Hamtramck probably afforded me, you know, to make probably the most number of friends and acquaintances, you know, that I've made in my stay here in the United States. Most of them are, you know, I know through the profession, both in art and design. When I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, many of my acquaintances were mainly they were mainly people of Nigerian origin. And here that is not the case. I probably know one or two people who are Nigerian.
What language do they speak in Nigeria?
The official language is English. Nigeria being a nation of nations, every nationality has its own language. I'm a Southwesterner, so I speak Yoruba.
Is there a Nigerian community around here?
Yes, there is. But I'm really not part of the community formally. Not the same way that I was when I lived in Kansas City, Missouri. When I lived in Kansas City, I got elected to, you know, a position in the organization. You know, I was active, much in the same way that I'm active with the arts and cultural organizations that I'm a member of, you know, now. So we could say that there's been that substitution.
What's your feelings about Hamtramck?
I think it's a nice city. Incidentally, I've heard of Hamtramck before. There was this one novel that I read. I was probably in maybe middle or junior high school, and I think it was Richmond Poorman, and I can't recall the author's name. But one of the characters came from Hamtramck. Yes. My feelings are generally positive. Most of the people are friendly, I think, especially the people I do business with. So I mean, the business relationships kind of have there's a personal touch to them. In Nigeria, the issue of skin color really doesn't crop up. It's ethnicity, and you know, this comes from the human need to have prejudicial feelings against the other, and that other could be skin color, religion, language, and so on and so forth. And in Nigeria, it probably is an issue, probably not as great an issue as here in the United States. If you live in Lagos, being a cosmopolitan environment, it's probably less, you know, it's not something I think about. A lot of my friends probably a good quarter to maybe nearly half of my friends, maybe even more, and acquaintances are not of the same ethnicity as myself. My girlfriends in the past have not, there's never been one that was Yoruba that I can think of, right off the cuff. There's no such thing as a Yoruba religion. They kind of got it wrong. It's like being Scottish or English. So you've got Yoruba language, there are Yoruba traditions, which these days are kind of melded if you grew up in a big city. The traditional religions, Yorubas are traditionally polytheists, that is, worship. I think we have 401 gods in our pantheon, which most people don't do that anymore and don't even want to be associated with it. Most Yoruba are Christians and Muslims. And in most families, you've got a whole mix of variety. My grandmother is from a Muslim family on the maternal side. Her father was the imam, of the town or city where, she grew up in. On my father's side, his mother's, the female ancestors of his mother was, Muslim and from some other part of the country. So it's not an issue. Here in the United States, I've never really encountered overt racism in a way that would make a difference, to me. It's not necessarily something that even offends me. I'm glad I'm in Hamtramck. I moved here, well, I got my studio here a little over 10 years ago. And I lived in a suburb, actually. And I traveled down to the studio. And eventually I thought it would be a better idea to move my residence close to the studio so I could have access to the studio, much easily than before. So that was the main reason for moving down here.
Economically more reasonable in Hamtramck, or not?
The price, yeah, it's all, there was also a reduction in rents. Yes, yes, it's economically feasible, and I think it was also a great idea because not long after that, I encountered a series of layoffs, from my job in the automotive industry.
You worked automotive for a while?
Yes, and living in a lower rent situation has probably been a lifesaver.
Who do you work for?
My last job was with General Motors at the tech center.
You got laid off?
Yes.
How long were you there?
I think this was 3-4 years. Most of the last decade I worked.
As an artist?
As an automotive sculptor.
Oh.
Yeah.
The molds?
Not molds. Automotive sculptors essentially build the clay models of the designs that the designers, draw.